Hello everyone, I'm Justin, and for today's video, we're taking care of a kid. Alice and Zoroku is an anime that aired in 2017. The production of this anime felt a bit special, because of its high quality animation for the time, and it was also the first time I saw an anime releasing a double featured 44-minute episode for its first episode. This has since become more common in the industry, but at the time, it came as a really unique idea. And because of that, I think it deserves a bit of a spotlight by talking about its premise and the story in general. But before we begin, here is a fair warning that there will be major spoilers ahead for the story, so please take that in consideration. And with that said, let's move on with the video. So, what is Alice and Zoroku about? Well, the story has an interesting premise that later on kind of fizzles out into something completely different, and by the end, you are a bit confused about where the story is going. But let's go back to the beginning. The first episode introduces us to Sana, a young girl that recently escaped from a research facility and has supernatural powers. She's followed by a group of kids that can create things out of nowhere, called Dreams of Alice. She finds protection in the hands of an old man called Zoroku who takes care of her and helps her adapt into society. The first premise introduces a lot of questions and an interesting plot to follow. A mysterious research facility and a shady group of people that control kids, as well as the dynamic between the powerful but young Sana and the mysterious and no-nonsense old man Zoroku. And adding to that, the mysteries of her powers, as well as the different clues that appear through the story, such as her older version of herself, were a really good way to attract viewers. But unfortunately, the initial premise gets thrown out the window by the middle point of the anime. Now, keep in mind that this anime is based off a manga, that it's currently still ongoing. The story tends to feel a bit too formulaic, and containing blocks of 3 to 4 episodes. While I haven't read the manga and I can't be completely sure how much it was adapted, I can guess that the first double-length episode and maybe episode 2 covers the first arc that centers around Sana escaping the facility and meeting Zoroku. Episode 3 to 5 covers the second arc that centers around fighting the research organization. Episodes 6 and 7 cover some minor stories in their daily lives. And episode 8 to 12 are the third arc of the story about the dream of Alice that is causing troubles. As you can see, early on the story completely changes. By episode 5, they have already defeated the evil organization and there is no major enemy left in the story. And going back and taking a look at the story, it feels a bit weird. I remember when this anime came out, I was watching it weekly, and personally, I enjoyed it a lot. It had some good action scenes, and the powers of the kids were perfect matching for a shonen anime. Add to that the family relationship between Sana and Zoroku, as well as Zoroku's granddaughter Sanae, and you have a lovable story with some really good elements. But as soon as I rethink a lot of the points now, I find a lot of holes in the plot. First of all, the anime takes a lot of elements from Alice in Wonderland, but doesn't really implement it well or consistently. Sana is sometimes called the Red Queen or Alice, which right off the bat are supposed to be two completely opposite characters. They also add this place called Wonderland, that is where Sana can create anything she desires. And even in later episodes, there is a rabbit that can help them get out of Wonderland, but that's never seriously explained. Aside from that, the powers feel a bit off. All the dreams of Alice have really specific rules to their powers, like only creating things attached to a chain or created things that you can draw. And they all have mastered these powers. But for Sana, she doesn't have that much control of her powers. Also, it is implied that she is different from everyone else as she's called Alice rather than Dream of Alice, and everyone's powers come from her. But then, how could other kids fight back or even cancel her powers, if she is supposed to be the source of their powers? There are a few other things, but you get the point. If you really start to look deep into the story, you will indeed find the plot holes. But I also want to talk about some positives. First of all, the first half of the anime has some really good elements that I enjoyed. The mystery felt fresh, the powers felt unique, and the dynamic between the young girl and the old cranky grandpa felt both genuine and fun. Adding to that, the developing story and a really good climax of Zoroku finally taking Sana in as part of the family felt like a good conclusion to the story. But then, there are still 7 more episodes to the story. The mini-stories in episodes 6 and 7 were fine. It felt like just adding a bit more flavor to the story before we move on to the next important part of the plot. But it felt a bit disappointing that we ended the story on the girl that awakens her powers and thinks that she's evil, only to help Sana learn a valuable lesson about family. It's not that the story was bad, it just wasn't as enjoyable as the first part of the anime, and the stakes really didn't felt as high as they were in the evil organization. The only saving grace was that by the end, there is a story development. The government is releasing to the public the existence of dreams of Alice, which creates a whole new dynamic of the story, and honestly, I would be interested to know where the story moves from there. Either by the government exploiting or trying to take advantage of them, or seeing a world that accepts them and adds them into this daily life. And with the story still being written by the author, with the latest volume 11 released on July 2023, I'm hopeful to see more of the story in the future, and who knows, maybe we will get a season 2 sooner than later. And with that said, we come to the conclusion of this anime review. What do you guys thought of Alice and Zoroku? Let me know in the comments below. Until then, see you guys next time.